There's something quietly working behind the scenes in your body, causing fatigue, brain fog, stubborn weight gain, and even chronic illness. It's inflammation, and it might be doing more damage than you realize. If you've ever asked, why do I feel so drained all the time? Or could my aches and pains be tied to something deeper? This episode is for you. We'll uncover how inflammation actually works, the surprising ways it can show up in your life, and the simple science-backed shifts you can start making today to turn it around. I'm Dr. Stacie Stevenson, the Wellness Detective. Let's investigate.
Sky asks the first question on inflammation. She wrote, "Hi, Dr. Stacie. My joints have been feeling stiff and achy lately, and I'm just not sure why. Could inflammation be the cause? And how would I know if that's what's really going on?"
Okay, if all your joints are stiff and achy, so if something is occurring sort of all over your body and you didn't have an injury and you can't really explain it, I would be thinking about chronic inflammation, but then I would be thinking about why. Like that could be rheumatoid arthritis, for example. That could be other forms of autoimmunities. That could be arthritides. That could just be tissue pressure and swelling. You could have edema and swelling from cardiac function or lung function. If you're having sort of this low grade, mild, up and down and all around achy joint situation for no real reason, it is fairly likely that the inflammatory process is in full swing in your body. The question becomes, how and why? We have to figure out for each individual person why it occurred, trace it back, push it down, get back to your exercise and your fitness routine, work with your hydration, and see where you stand. And I think we have another one. What else do we have?
We have a question from California. She asks, "I always thought of stress as more of a mental thing. But now I'm hearing it can actually cause inflammation too. Is emotional stress really enough to affect my body that way?"
For certain, emotional stress can lead to inflammation. Inflammation then can lead to more physical stress. Physical stress leads to emotional stress. It's this vicious, you're a hamster on a wheel. It doesn't really matter if your stressors are external or your stressors are emotional, psychological, or emotional. Your body sees them the same. In a chronic capacity, it will, the similar, essentially the similar physiological pathways are triggered no matter from where the stressor came. So it really is all the same. Your body's pretty indiscriminate and doesn't really care too much if the stressor came from outside or inside. Chronically, the response is very similar. Who's next on inflammation?
This next question to the Wellness Detective asks, "Dr. Stacie, I keep hearing that chronic inflammation is at the root of everything. Where does chronic inflammation actually come from, and how does it get out of control?"
Ooh, that's a really big question. But it's a really important one. And it is a question, the core piece here is you're sort of saying is inflammation real? How does it get there? Why does it continue? The word inflammation just means swelling. And so that's why you're all confused. Science defines that as pain, redness, swelling. Okay. Like a cut, a laceration, you cut your finger, big bruise, fall, whatever, all those things, right? Have this massive swelling. Inflammation means swelling. That's not what we mean. It's cellular inflammation. It's a summation of microscopic level internal inflammatory molecules and products that trigger and send cellular signals for your body to do things that aren't good and aren't helpful to you. Those molecules that get triggered, leukotrienes, cytokines, you'll hear these words. Those aren't the same molecules that get triggered when you break your leg. So I'd like to think of a different word to tell you all, but I can't really come up with it because I'm so trained myself on chronic inflammation. But I will tell you it's real. And some of it, by the way, you can see. Have you ever, maybe your face looks swollen Maybe you feel bloated. Maybe you feel like you're not digesting, not sleeping. We haven't even started about toxic chemicals and metals in our environment, the old mercury and lead discussions, and there are others. I want to give you maybe one piece to really think about with the inflammatory response. Your micro-inflammatory response gets neutralized largely by your microbiotic environment. In other words, your microbes in your body. And we have lost as a population the appropriate, for lack of a better word, milieu, the mixture of the appropriate microbes in our body. We've killed them off with antibiotics. We've killed them off with our farming mechanisms because it's not really on the food anymore. So the inflammatory response, the micro-inflammatory response, is a normal response in your body to just its typical physiological functions. But then it has to be neutralized with antioxidants. It has to be neutralized with your microbiome. It has to be neutralized with fluids. It has to be diluted. Think water. Why do we want you to drink so much water? It actually does cleanse the inflammatory process. Something as simple. A lot of you want to know, how do I stop the inflammation? You must reduce the processed foods. You've got to eat real food, not out of boxes and cans. Stop eating out of boxes and cans, please. Like when I open a cupboard and I see a bunch of cans and boxes, I just want to throw up. Sorry, but I've been at this a long time. You have to maintain your microbiotic environment. And so that's all the discussions regarding taking probiotics. You've got to maintain your digestive system, and elimination systems have to work as well. So your entire digestive system is critical in reducing inflammation and its function. You have to feed yourself anti-inflammatory foods, which happen to be the Mediterranean-based diet anyway. Your healthful fishes, your healthful oils, your healthful omega-6 and 3 oils, reducing simple carbohydrates, reducing sugar, not drinking alcohol, your green leafies, your high antioxidant fruits and vegetables, your superfoods. Here's where you think your dark greens, your kales and your spinaches and all of those wonderful things. Eating the rainbow. You have to do that so that your body reduces the inflammatory response, that it's responding to the normal chemicals in our world. Would you be amazed that the inflammation even affects your thinking and your brain and your energy, your moods, depression, anxiety, how you're responding to stress, how you adapt, how you sleep can reduce the very important neurotransmitter in your brain called GABA, which is our only calming brain chemical. It's the only one that calms everything down. Every other which they're called neurotransmitters. You've all heard of epinephrine, norepinephrine. You might have heard of dopamine. All of those stimulate your brain. GABA is the only one that is a calming neurotransmitter. I'd prefer dairy elimination too, because dairy is very pro-inflammatory. Caffeine is pro-inflammatory. It maintains these responses. Alcohol is very pro-inflammatory, and sugar. Everything you all love, you're going to kill me off now because I just told you you can't have all of the things you love. All of those make more inflammation. So if you take a little bit of those and then add to it processed foods, you're really in trouble. You're really in trouble. So,
Dr. Stacie, we have a great question about that last point. From Salem, Oregon, Cassie says, I know you believe that snacks are breeding grounds for inflammation, but as a mother, I try to buy organic, but I am having a very hard time and it's upsetting me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the inflammation topic is so upsetting. Okay, first of all, you sound like a perfectionist. You're not going to get this perfect. However, I will give you a hard truth that you won't like. You just don't want to hear it from me. That snack cupboard probably is pro-inflammatory. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but it probably is. It's probably loaded with, it could be loaded with corn sugars. It could be loaded with wheat. It could be loaded with dyes. It could be loaded with just processed chemicals that you just don't want to give your child. And there could be some good products in there too, because you said you're trying to buy the organic and you're trying to buy the cleaner. I like the 4-ingredient test on processed foods. When you read your ingredients, and if they're under 4, you're in a pretty good place. That might be an easier way because guess what? The chances are there are no dyes. Otherwise, you'd see them listed. You'd see all the dyes. There aren't preservatives, or probably not, because you would see all of them listed. And by the way, they hide them. So you'd see some. Yeah, let's go with the 4-ingredient rule. And don't stress out if it's 5.
Here's a quick, simple question from Sierra. Wheat. Why wheat? I thought it was okay.
God, y'all are killing me with the wheat and the gluten and everything. Approximately 40% of the population has a negative response to the wheat protein. And let's say you're not one of them, and that you really don't have a legitimate sensitivity to wheat. It's not a very nutritious food. Breads have been utilized in our history as just a high, inexpensive, easy to store sugar. Basically, it's a carbohydrate. It's a quick carbohydrate that you could store, you could make easily, didn't take a lot of ingredients, and would keep people alive. That's the history of bread. You don't need it. You don't need it. I'm sorry. You just don't need to eat it. There's no nutrition in it. They add the folic acid. I can't even take it. You strip them all out, make a crappy food, and then let's add some vitamins back in. Hey, just moderation with the bread and the wheat, sorry. But at core, because we're talking about inflammation, it's not exactly the wheat that's inflammatory. It's simple carbohydrates that are simple. Well, because then you're going to ask me about fruits if they're inflammatory. We really could get in a mess here. I don't want to get in a mess with you. Let's just reduce the wheat intake. And I hope that's helpful.
The next question is from a woman from the Great Lakes. She asks, Dr. Stacie, I'm wondering whether inflammation could be part of why I feel so off lately. Is there a way to find out for sure? Are there specific tests or markers I can ask my doctor to check?
Well, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to enjoy. You tend to want to ask your doctor, and your doctor is probably going to tell you that chronic inflammation doesn't exactly exist. They're also going to say there isn't really a test. And I'm going to tell you also, there isn't a specific test. There are markers that give us indicators, and they're very general, and they've been around for a really long time, and we can test them. You can have it tested, but it doesn't tell you where in the area. It just can give you a small insight, and it happens to be CRP, C-reactive protein, and it's a blood test. It's a generalized marker. You're going to have an elevation if you have a flu inflammation and a allergy. You're going to have that elevated if you have chronic sensitivities and food allergies. That marker could be elevated if you're having some cardiac dysfunction. It could be elevated if you had a planned voluntary surgery. So there aren't a lot of official tests for inflammation. And I think that's why your doctor will probably also tell you it doesn't exactly exist. However, if your doctor or a doctor, a very astute doctor or other health professional for you, worked through the details of your experiences and the details of your symptoms, there can be tests that help me narrow in to your situation. say that I have a suspicion that you have elevation in certain toxic metals. It could be a mid-grade level, but it's causing symptoms. So then I would test that. But see, that's several steps apart. I'm not officially diagnosing your inflammation. I'm using your experience of chronic inflammatory cellular symptoms. I'm using that to try to then trace those causes and those roots. Maybe I think that chronic inflammation is more linked to foods that you're eating. I could test those to see if you're sensitive. Maybe I think you have any type of hormone irregularities or imbalances. Then I could test, and that could lead to inflammation. I could test those. We can test you, the human being. We can evaluate your status, your nutrient status, your digestive status. We could do digestive stool analyses. That's a really good one, and look at your entire microbiome. It can be a kind of a long road, and you almost never want to think of looking at something like that you're just going to go into your doctor and get one test or two tests, and 3 days later you're going to walk out with this diagnosis, and then you're going to have a clear treatment. I hope that didn't create more confusion. There basically isn't one inflammatory test.
We have a question from Dawn215. She wrote, Dr. Stacie, I keep seeing turmeric on every supplement list for inflammation. Does it really work, or is that just one of those wellness trends that sounds good but doesn't do much?
Hey, turmeric is not a trend. Turmeric goes way back in history, and it's real. It has an impact on, and actually the active ingredient in turmeric is something called curcumin. And the curcumin has an effect on hundreds of inflammatory, actually enzyme processes in your body. So I like to use straight curcumin because you get a higher quantity of the active ingredient that's in the turmeric. But when turmeric is connected to anti-inflammation, that is very correct and holds true. It's not a trend. It's not a trend. It's just sort of like you're just hearing about it. I'm happy it's a trend. It's actually one of those that's real. So I'm actually happy that's really in your consciousness and you asked that question. Thank you.
Pam asks, I started working out more regularly and I'm curious.
Yeah.
Can daily movement or exercise actually help reduce inflammation in my body? Or is it just about weight loss and gaining muscle?
No, exercise and movement and activity absolutely reduce inflammation for sure. It also reduces the byproducts of the inflammatory processes. You need your muscles and your lymph system to have to physically remove some of those negative toxic byproducts that we've been talking about with this inflammatory discussion. Fitness, exercise, movement is critical in reducing the overall inflammatory load in your body. There's no way around it. You have to move. You have to move to get better. For sure. I hope that helps.
And our last question on inflammation is, Dr. Stacie, I've got a sweet tooth, and I heard sugar can fuel inflammation in the body. Is that true? And how much is too much before it starts becoming a real problem?
Okay, sugar. I hate sugar. You all know I hate sugar. You know I hate sugar. You know I talk about sugar all the time, and that if I could take it off the face of the earth, I would, for kids especially. How much is too much sugar? Really difficult to define. There are studies on it. Does it trigger inflammation? Is simple sugar inflammatory? Yes, for sure. Meaning processed cane sugar, the white stuff, even the brown stuff. Yes, it's a simple carbohydrate. It drives up your blood glucose. You come crashing down. It really needs to be utilized in moderation and stick to your more, well, and remember, even fructose, fruit sugars are better, but they still are a simple sugar molecule. They just happen to be two saccharides hooked together instead of one. So your body sees fruit sugars very similarly as it does just a simple white sugar, but it's a little better because you do get some nutrients. So can we just try to get rid of the sugar? Will you? Will you do that? For yourself? No. Thanks for spending time with me today on The Wellness Detective. We dug into inflammation, what it is, how it can silently impact your body, and the ways small, consistent changes in your diet, movement, and mindset can help calm it down. Here's the bottom line. Inflammation doesn't have to control your health. With curiosity, consistency, and a little self-kindness, you can reduce inflammation and feel better from the inside out. If anything we talked about today hit home, I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe, leave a review, or share this with someone you care about. And don't forget, you can always send your questions my way at drstaciestevenson.com. I might just answer it in a future episode. Until next time, be your own wellness detective. Listen to your body and be kind to yourself. I'm Dr. Stacie Stevenson, wishing you joy and vibrant health every day.